Okay. We can something I have to take care of here. 1 second. All right. Fine. Okay, folks. My apologies. I'm a few minutes late, but nothing terrible. How's the sound? It sound okay? Yeah. No response. Okay, good. All right. Yeah. So, I was actually talking at a synagogue a couple miles away from here, and so I just got back. Okay. I guess one of the things that we could do is I could talk about one of the ideas that I mentioned over there tonight. Today is what is called Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh meaning the beginning of the month, the beginning of the Hebrew month. Now, as any of you who follow these kinds of things might know, when you see the, sort of the zodiac predictions for the month or whatever in newspapers, if they still have such things, I don't know. I haven't looked at newspapers for a very, very long time, and certainly that's not one of the things I would look for. But if you would know, I know from when I was much younger, usually the signs of the zodiac are somewhere in the middle of the month to beginning of the middle of the month or whatever to the middle of the following month, and that is because the mazalot, the constellations, really follow the Hebrew months, not the English months. In other words, it's a lunar. They're based on a lunar calendar rather than on a solar calendar. So what I was talking about tonight was the meaning of the month of Adar or Adar Sheni. Adar Sheni is this month, the second Adar. What happens is, as you obviously know, the lunar calendar is about 354 days long, and the solar calendar is 365 and a bit and a quarter. So just approximately 354, approximately 365. So that leaves an 11-day gap. So therefore, approximately every 3 years, it doesn't exactly work out like that because obviously it's 2-point-something years. There has to be another month in the Hebrew calendar. There's another month added in order to bring the two calendars into sync. Because the solar, as you are also probably aware, the calendar is very important in marking off certain important days in the calendar, obviously, and there are some that go according to only a lunar calendar. For instance, Islam goes according to a lunar calendar, and Christianity goes according to a solar calendar. Judaism goes according to both calendars. We have both, and therefore the two calendars have to be synchronized because of that 11-day gap per year, so they have to be synchronized. So every 2-point-something years, which works out 4 times in 7 years, really. That's the way it really works out. Is that there is an extra month added into the calendar that's called Adar Sheni. The second month that's added is always the month before Passover. Another month is added in before Passover. Passover is in 2 months then. From tonight it'll be next month, the month of Nisan. So you have 2 Adars, which is a very unusual thing. You don't have any other months that are double months. You only have 1 month that's a double month, and that's the month of Adar. I know in the leap year in the solar calendar is just an extra day. That's to make up for so it happens every 4 because there's a quarter of a day approximately. But in order to bring the calendars into sync, so this is the way it's done. Okay, so each month has its particular calendar, its particular quality. And the month of Adar, and particularly the second Adar, is the month about which the sages say, this is the day, this is the month in which mourning or distress was changed into joy. That's the character of the month. The character of the month is to convert anxiety. Convert is the wrong word. To change anxiety, to transform anxiety and mourning and sadness and so on and so forth into joy. Therefore, the chush, the sense of this month is the sense of laughter. Now, you may or may not be aware of this, but traditionally now, in traditional Western knowledge, we only have 5 senses basically. And some people who are particularly well endowed might have a 6th sense as well, with sort of intuition, I suppose. Yeah, but hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, and tasting are the 5 senses that we know about. However, in Jewish tradition, Kabbalistic tradition, there are actually 12 senses, 1 sense corresponding to each of the months. 12 months, so there's 12 senses. And these senses are not what you might necessarily expect. 1 sense is the sense of speech. Speech is called a sense, which makes actually very good sense. Animals do not have such a sense. They have other senses, but they don't have the sense of speech. Certainly don't have a sense of humor, as we'll see. All right. There's also that is in the Hebrew month of Nisan, the month in which Passover falls, Nisan, which is in a month's time approximately. That's the sense of speech, and therefore the custom, part of many of the customs associated with Passover have to do with speech, talking to your children. But you got to speak to your children, which is in fact a very important thing, which we should discuss at some point in time. Communication. In any event, then there is a month. The month after that is called the month of Iyar, in which the chush, the sense, is the sense of what's called iyun, to focus in on things, to focus deeply on something. Then there's the month of where the sense is hiluch, movement, literally walking, but movement. And then there's, after that, there's sight, and then there's seeing and hearing and action and touch and the sense of smell. And then there's a sense, this is a sense that everyone could do a little bit more, with a little bit more use of, a sense of sleep, right? The sense of sleep. Sleep is a sense, interestingly enough. The sense of anger, the sense of eating, and the sense of laughter. So the sense of laughter is this month, right? This month, the month of Adar. Sense of laughter, and that's why laughter is a very important part of the month, because the sages say about this month, Mishenichnas Adar, Marbe Mesimcha, when the month of Adar comes in, this is a month in which you have to increase in joy. Now, when I was studying in rabbinical seminary, it's called yeshiva, when I was studying in yeshiva, one of the customs was that every night after study hall, and when I say study, every night after study hall, when I was in yeshiva, I was in yeshiva in Israel primarily. So study hall began at 7:30 in the morning. I personally began much earlier than that. I just happened to be an early riser, but it began 7:30, officially 7:30 in the morning, and it ended at 9:30 at night. Right, 9:30 or 7:30 in the morning to 9:30 at night. So with about a break of an hour in the middle of the day. So after the study hall was finished, after we completed our studies at night, so then there was obviously a voluntary thing, but there was dancing, music and dancing. Now it's an all men's yeshiva, you understand. There was no ladies to dance with. This is the Jewish tradition at an Orthodox wedding. You will see that the men dance together and the women dance with the women. Women dance with other women, men dance with other men. They dance all together, usually in a circle, and this and that. A lot of fun, a lot of joy, a lot of etc. But this is what we did in yeshiva, in seminary, rabbinical seminary. You dance at night. So that's one of the ways in which you celebrate the month of Adar. However, it's very interesting. There's another month that's exactly the opposite of this month. That is called the month of Av. The month of Av is really a month of mourning. It's the month in which the mourning of over the destruction of the temple is observed on the 9th day of the month. It's called Tisha B'Av. On that month, we commemorate the destruction of both temples, the first and the second temples, which were destroyed on the same day. For over 400 years apart. So when it comes to the month of Av, it says there that you have to reduce in joy. It's a time of mourning. It's a month of mourning. It's a sad month. At least the first half of the month is a sad month, and there's a lot of things that you have to reduce in. During the first 10 days of the month, you don't eat any meat. For those of you who are vegetarian, it wouldn't matter much, but for those who are carnivores, we don't eat meat during that time, except on Sabbath. And there's all kinds of other things. You don't play music, and it's a time of mourning, basically, a time of mourning which is observed every year in commemoration of the destruction of the temple. But there's certain limitations on what is regarded as mourning, and those are things that you have to observe and nothing else. You're not supposed to walk around with a sense of gloom and depression hanging over you. That's not the intention. The intention is to be thoughtful, to think about and observe in whatever way necessary. Time of destruction. But when it comes to the month of Adar, it's the opposite. Except, said Dennis here, except that when it comes to the month of Adar, it doesn't say in what you're supposed to be joyful. So therefore, it's a blanket statement that covers the entire month and every possible way in which a person can be joyful. Hanging out together with friends, having a good meal together, laughing together, enjoying each other's company. There's lots and lots and lots of things. And things that, unfortunately, in our day and age, we tend to not think about so much. Now, kids usually do have a good time, but usually in an irresponsible way, or at least possibly in an irresponsible way. I'm talking about students and things like that. But conscious enjoyment, conscious joy is something that we really have to work on. There's plenty of things to make one depressed. And the more one notices, the more sensitive a soul is, or a person is, the more that one could feel the sense of gloom and depression, sadness. But in this month, you have to banish all of that. The truth is that according to the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, which he bases on the writings of the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, there's a verse. The verse says, Tachat asher lo avadata et Hashem Elokecha b'simcha u'b'tuv levav, because you didn't serve God with joy. And you get lost to your enemies. You become defeated by your enemies. But there's two ways of understanding that. You could understand in the literal sense, because you did not serve God and you were joyful in not serving. You were happy not to serve God. In other words, you were happy to ignore the spiritual side of life. Therefore, you get lost to your enemies. That's the natural consequence. Not a punishment, it's a natural consequence. Dennis, I'll get back to you in a second. But the Arizal did not explain it like that. He said, because you did not serve with joy, in other words, whatever you did, even if you did the right thing and you weren't actually depressed, but it's not that you were joyful not to serve to serve God. You did serve God, and you did in the best way you could, you possibly could. You worked on it, but you didn't do it joyfully. You did it out of a sense of duty or out of a sense of rote only, and with this yoke around your neck kind of thing, instead of doing things joyfully. That is also gets you lost to your enemy. What's your enemy? Your enemy is the thing which lessens your spiritual stature. That's what your enemy are. The enemy that we battle on an era, the truth is on a daily basis, is the enemy. It's not some external enemy necessarily. It could also be an external enemy. That can also happen. But the enemy that we battle is an internal enemy largely, and it's the enemy which reduces us. It reduces our spiritual stature. It reduces us to small-minded, small emotion, small picture people. And that's what we have to fight against. That's what joy is. Joy is expansive. Joy is, it opens a person up. And not only the person himself, herself, but the people around us as well. When a person is joyful and in a state of, how shall I say, a state of open-heartedness, let's put it that way. Open heart joy. That's an expression, but let's call it that. Then it affects people around us. People enjoy it. They like that. You lift up people's spirit, and spiritually uplifting experience for both ourselves and those around us. And that's what this month, in fact, is all about. Let me just respond to Dennis. Could this be a development of holy joy? This is how to develop holy joy. Exactly. That's in fact exactly the point. Holy joy. Joy does not mean what our sages refer to as hololut. Hololut means hollow and sneering enjoyment. Hollow joy. In other words, like getting drunk and that kind of thing, and coarse joy. We're not talking about coarse joy. We're talking about joy that uplifts the spirit. The uplifting the spirit, very important thing. And therefore, to dedicate a month in the year, and this year 2 months because it's a leap year, dedicate 2 months to this idea of lifting up joy by focusing on this particular faculty of the soul, the faculty of laughter, is very, very important. It's something which that faculty can tend to get not only forgotten about, but like wither away and almost wither away and die. Something that we have to work on. We have to work on all these faculties. In other words, when it comes to the faculty of sight or seeing, we have to refine our seeing to see the good qualities in people, to see the good, to sharpen what it is that we look at with a positive eye, and to shut our eyes to negative things to look at. In other words, whatever, looking at the bad qualities in other people, certainly looking at, pornographic images and things like that, negative things. You'd be surprised how much of an effect that has on one's psyche. I'm sure that our good friend, the psychologist Terry, who's on here, could vouch for that when people involve themselves in negative imagery all the time, looking at bad things, it has a tremendously crippling psychological effect on the person. So cultivating joy is what this month is all about. But the way the sages express this is, it's a month in which sadness or gloom is turned over. It's turned over into joy. In other words, it's not good enough just to be joyful, but to take those things that are sometimes a reason or a source of sadness and to transform them into sources of joy and sources of delight. Let's say, for example, a person has, let's say you have a child who's being very, very difficult. Now, without knowing, I'm gonna just generalize here completely, and you'll forgive me for generalizing, but discussing particular cases, obviously, we can't do here. But I'd be happy to discuss with you individually if necessary. But let's say a child is acting up and is not acting well, not doing what the parents really want them to do, or even what's in the best interest of the child himself or herself. So one of the reasons for that could be that they really aren't getting enough attention from one or both of their parents. Therefore, they're acting up to try and get attention. That's not always the case. There could be other causes, other reasons. I'm just, in this particular example, let's say the child is not getting enough attention. Why? Because the parent is, very busy at work the whole day. And when they come home, they have more work to catch up on and emails and perhaps, they're chatting to a friend on the phone via, Facebook or whatever. They're looking at Facebook, they're looking at this, that. They need to relax. But if it's at all possible, for you parents out there, spend a few minutes quality time with your kids. It's true, you have other things to do at night also, yes, but spend some time. Dinner time has to be, in my opinion, sacrosanct. No radio, no television, no phones, no newspapers, magazines at dinner time. It's time when we're all eating, we're occupied with eating anyway. Spend that time paying attention to your family around you. In a joyful way, in a playful way, in an enjoying each other's company way. And you'd be surprised what kind of transformation that can affect in relationships, be it with a spouse or be it with children. I had the habit every night when my kids were small, every night when they went to bed, I went to sit with them in their room and I read them a story. Now, you got to know what kind of stories to read them. I wasn't reading them stories that are going to give them nightmares. I was reading them stories about good things that I would want them to emulate. Happy stories about courage, about friendship, about love, about faithfulness, about inquisitiveness, about intelligence, whatever it might happen to be, but good positive qualities of character. And if you read them in a story, you don't have to tell your children that this is what I want you to be. They automatically sort of absorb it, and they automatically absorb this kind of thing. And if the stories are told over with love and so on, and with it's just a way of getting close. It's a way of getting close to your kids. It's very easy to read a story. Of course, you have to prepare beforehand and make sure you know what the story is about, that it's the right kind of content for a child. And of course, it has to be age appropriate. But I would read them stories about great people, about what's called in the Hebrew jargon tzaddikim, saintly people, and how they were when they were younger or when they were older, whatever it is. I mean, there's plenty of biographies and things like that. Good thinking, sane, sound, healthy, mentally, spiritually people, and kids pick up a lot from that. Okay. Dennis asks again, do you happen to have a chart that names the different months and the quality that month brings out to our soul? If I do, could I send it to you? I'm not sure that I do. One second, let me just check on my computer here. Let's see here. I have a document. I don't know what it says, but we'll see soon. Yeah, I do, but it's in Hebrew. Okay. I'll look around. I'll see if there's something. If there is something that I can send you, I'll have to look around on my computer. If it's not on my computer, I might be able to find a website that has this information. And if not, I will try and make some time, just at least to give you a basic outline of those particular things, those qualities that the month brings out. Dennis, if you don't mind, send me an email reminder, or anyone else who wants it as well could send me an email reminder, and I'd be glad to share it with you as soon as I find it. As far as that's concerned, I just have to mention, I know that people are very thoughtfully careful of my time, and they don't want to bother me and whatever. That's fine. I mean, I appreciate it. But if you do have questions and things that you need clarification on, and you would like to, how shall I say, you would like, we'd like an answer to a question, you don't have to hesitate. If I don't have time to answer, I probably won't, or I'll let you know that I don't have time. If I don't have the answer, will probably tell you that too. But you don't have to be shy. I mean, we're all, how shall I say, we're all in this together, and therefore, you're very welcome to put down, even if the question is private, you could send it with an email that has a pseudonym on it if you want, and that's fine. I don't have to know who you are in order to answer a question. The best place to send it to probably would be KabbalahDecoded@gmail.com. You can send it to my email or to that one, Kabbalah Decoded, KABBALAH Decoded, one word, Kabbalah Decoded @gmail.com. Send it there, or you can send it to this email as well. Either of them would be good. And just put the question or whatever in the tagline. Okay, so as far as the month is concerned, then as far as the month of Adar, one of the ideas that's expressed in the month of Adar, that it's a time of Aleph Dar. Aleph refers to God, Alufa Shalol, on the Master of the Worlds, right? Dar, this is the time when we have to make a dwelling place for God in the world. In other words, take our lives, part of our lives, and just as there is supposed to be a holy space, which was the space of the temple, right, where the temple was, and there's holy times right throughout the week, throughout the year, there's holy times. So there also has to be a holy place in the soul. In other words, the Torah readings from this particular time have to do with the building of the tabernacle. And it's pointed out that the tabernacle was not only a physical structure out in the world, it's also a spiritual structure in the soul of a person. So one has to make in oneself a temple, so to speak, into which one goes on a regular basis, preferably on a daily basis. In other words, a few minutes of meditation, thought, meditation about what it is that where am I in the world, what am I doing, where am I going. Just heard a beautiful story last night, actually, from a certain rabbi friend of mine. His parents, his father, was brought up in a non-religious family, Jewish family, but not religious, and they were from a place called Tunisia. It's somewhere in the Middle East, basically, Africa, top part of Africa, actually. But his father was born there, And then his parents, his father's parents, in other words, his grandparents, and his father and their other children, and their other children. The father was young at the time; was a young man. Actually, a boy moved to Canada. They went to live in Canada, and this friend of mine, this rabbi, his father was actually a professor became a professor in a university, in one of the universities in Canada. Very, very bright, very smart person. But anyway, so he told me a story last night, that when his grandparents and his father and his uncles were on the boat from Tunisia to Canada, to Montreal, I guess. So they were out in the open sea, and wherever he looked, this young man, the father of this friend of mine, was young. Obviously, wasn't married at the time. Was a young boy, maybe 15. I think he said 15, 16. He looked around and he sees like this vast ocean, and it looks the same in every direction. You can't see where, no land, there's no markers, there's no. So he starts thinking to himself, how does the captain know where he's going? How does this boat know where to get, how to get to Canada? Maybe we'll be lost forever at sea. So obviously he, was a bright young boy, and he said, no, the captain must know where he's going. The captain of the ship knows where he's going. And how does he know where he's going? Because he has a map and he has a compass. And so he started thinking, well, what do I have in my life? I'm starting out in this new place, Canada. I've never been there before. I don't even speak the language. English. He spoke French, I think, but he didn't speak any English. And how am I going to manage? Like, how am I going to, I have to have a map and I have to have a compass. And I don't have that right now. How am I going to get that? So when eventually they landed in Canada, he sought out some religious Jewish people, and he said to them, I don't have a map and I don't have a compass and I need to be taught. And that's how he started. Very interesting story. He became a religious man, very religious man. In any event, the idea is that there's a map, there's a blueprint. For us, the blueprint is the Torah, the Bible. That is the blueprint. And there's a compass. A compass is our moral sensitivity, which we have to build up, our relationship to God and to other people, based on what the map says. And we have to, find the North Star, so to speak, in order to guide ourselves properly and know where it is that we're going along the map. Where are we along the map, and in which direction are we going? Or are we just sort of drifting in the open sea? Very important thing. Very important to clarify that. And it's never, ever, ever too late. It's never too late. We've come so far. A person might be, 90 years old, and have wasted 90 years of his life, her life, whatever it is. It's always possible to get direction in the 90th year, or certainly before then. Okay. All right. I'm going to call that a day as far as I'm concerned. But if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. All right. I'm going to stop recording here, but